Tonight is the biggest night of the year for JG9 Live, as over on Twitch tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be playing NFL Trivia and giving away over $300 in cash prizes to our winner, and that number can only go up. Click the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. The player you're watching right now is Scott Radecic, and all things considered, he had a pretty good career in the NFL. After being drafted in the second round of the 1984 NFL Draft out of Penn State, the linebacker wound up playing 12 seasons in the NFL, playing 182 games and starting 79 of them between the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, and the Indianapolis Colts. No, he did not receive any Pro Bowl honors over his career, nor did he make any All-Pro teams. But of the 59 linebackers drafted in the 1984 NFL Draft, over the course of all 12 rounds and all 336 picks, Radecic lasted in the league longer than, or as long as, every other linebacker, with the exception of New York Jets linebacker Kyle Clifton, who beat him by 1 year. No, it didn't necessarily work out with the team that originally drafted him in the Chiefs, as thanks to some schematic changes with the changing of a coaching staff in 1987, he was kind of eliminated from the equation, and was off the team after 3 seasons. However, when you play 12 seasons in the NFL, and you're a starter for a good chunk of them, you did something right, because that's a heck of a career to be able to say that you played over a decade at football's highest level. However, despite playing in 182 games, and despite playing for well over a decade, in his entire career, Scott Radecic only scored 1 touchdown. That's it. He's a member of the 1 touchdown club. He's only had 1 chance to sniff the glory that other offensive players routinely get a chance to bask in. And that touchdown that he scored? Well, it came off of an absolutely giant mistake. It came on a play where he completely botched his assignment. It came on a play that if he failed, he would have been sent back to the bench. It came on a play that was never supposed to happen, that left him feeling embarrassed afterwards, even though it worked out, and left his teammates super confused as it was unfolding in real time. Because in a 1984 game against the Seattle Seahawks, Kansas City Chiefs linebacker Scott Radecic committed arguably the greatest and most beneficial mistake in the over 60-year history of the franchise. Before I talk about the play in question, we need some context to understand how the game was going, as well as why the heck Radecic was even in the game in the first place, because he didn't even know he was starting until just an hour or so before the game. But we'll get to that in a bit. It's December 9th, 1984. It's week 15 of the NFL season, and as we're wrapping things up in this 1984 campaign, we have an AFC West game on our hands over at Arrowhead Stadium between the Seattle Seahawks and the Kansas City Chiefs. The good news was that this was an absolutely critical game, and was one of the biggest games of the week on the NFL calendar. The bad news was that it had nothing to do with the Chiefs whatsoever. Even though this game meant the world to the Seahawks, as they were 12-2, were fighting for their first AFC West title in franchise history by sitting a game up on the 11-3 Denver Broncos, with a meeting against the Broncos coming in week 16, potentially for the division title, and were even fighting with the 12-2 Miami Dolphins for home field advantage throughout the playoffs and the number 1 seed in the AFC, for the Chiefs, this game meant nothing in terms of their stakes. This was a Chiefs team that hadn't made it to the playoffs since 1971, with their playoff drought being well over a decade at this point, and it was going to stay that way, as through 14 weeks in 1984, they were 6-8, having been mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. That's part of the reason why only 34,855 fans showed up to Arrowhead Stadium to watch this game, as the stadium was not even half full, making it, quite easily, their smallest crowd of the season. However, that's not to say that they weren't playing for anything, because they were playing for pride and revenge. Because the Chiefs and Seahawks occupied the same division in the AFC West, they played each other twice in 1984. The game you're watching right now is what happened the first time these teams met back in the Kingdome in Seattle in week 10, just over 1 month before. Not only did the Chiefs lose 45-0, but they lost in humiliating and historic fashion. Nearly 40 years later, that game still lives on, because that game was the game that the Chiefs quarterbacks combined to throw 4 pick sixes, an NFL record. They gave up 28 points just throwing it directly to the other team. All 3 quarterbacks that the Chiefs played in that game had a passer rating below 39.6, which is the passer rating if you did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. It was embarrassing. It was pathetic. And even in a lost season, it was all the motivation that the Chiefs needed to get ready for this one. As linebacker Calvin Daniels said afterwards on using the first meeting as motivation, "Don't think that game didn't come into play in this one. Oh yeah, it did." But if the Chiefs were going to do well in this one and get revenge on a team that beat them by 45 points last time and was looking like maybe the best in the AFC, then they were going to need a good game out of this guy right here, Scott Radecic. Now, Radecic hadn't played a whole lot this season as a starter, and that's because he was riding the bench in favor of the veteran linebacker, Gary Spaney. Oddly enough, this is not the first time I've done a video about Spaney, so if you want to learn more about him, click the card in the upper right corner. And as of Saturday afternoon, 24 hours before kickoff, it was going to be business as usual, with Spaney starting and Radecic coming off of the bench and playing occasionally, just as has been the case all year. However, that Saturday, Spaney got hurt in an off-the-field accident. He was at a friend's house, being at the house of a teammate and a close friend, defensive end Mike Bell, when he hurt his head and had to get a dozen stitches. As Bell said on his friend's injury, Spaney told me he was feeling real hot, and then he just fainted. Bell also said that Spaney hadn't eaten a lot all day, and when he went to the bathroom, came out feeling dizzy. Then, he just fell and landed the wrong way. And this meant that now, it was Scott Radecic's time to shine, and get thrust into the starting lineup. It was completely unexpected, but this was now a golden opportunity for Radecic, the second-round man out of Penn State, to show what he could do. And that takes us to the all-important play in question. Because at this point in the contest, in front of the roughly 35,000 fans at Arrowhead Stadium, to the surprise of a lot of people, the Chiefs were holding their own against the team that beat them by 45 earlier in the year, and against the team that was the best in the conference, or one of the best. After the teams exchanged touchdowns in the first quarter, with the Chiefs striking first on a 2-yard touchdown run by rookie running back Herman Hurd, and the Seahawks answering later in the quarter on a 49-yard touchdown pass by Dave Craig to Darrell Turner on a flea flicker, the Chiefs took a 10-7 lead after they got into the red zone and got a 29-yard field goal out of the always reliable kicker, Nick Lowry, who you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. The Seahawks needed an answer before the halftime break, just like what they got in the first quarter. Instead, the exact opposite happened, because what was about to transpire turned out to be the greatest and the most beneficial mistake in the over 60-year history of the Kansas City Chiefs. Roll the tape.
And we'll tell you why in case you haven't figured it out. We talked about that earlier in the season. Seattle now from their own 19-yard line. Craig back to throw. Intercepted. It'll be a touchdown. Radecic, the rookie.
Just like that, Scott Radecic, making the surprise start, scored the first touchdown of his career. He scored the touchdown that completely changed the momentum of the game, as from that point on, it was all Kansas City, as the Chiefs not only avenged their 45-point defeat from earlier in the season, but they never looked back, as they won the game convincingly, taking it by a final score of 34-7. That's a 72-point swing between the two games. No one saw that coming. And everyone agreed, the Radecic play was the moment that the game completely turned on its head. The Radecic play was the true game changer. Seahawks quarterback Dave Craig struggled heavily all game, doing a Fetty Wap and going 17 for 38, completing just 44% of his passes with 5 interceptions and a passer rating of 37.4, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play. He was terrible, and eventually got yanked for Jim Zorn. However, of all the 5 interceptions he threw, it was the one to Radecic that was, without a doubt, the most costly. and the most detrimental to Seattle's chances of winning. Chiefs quarterback Bill Kenny even said as much, saying on Radecic's pick 6, that was the key play in the game. There was just one small problem with this Radecic interception. Yeah, he was never supposed to be there. And I don't mean he wasn't supposed to be in the lineup because of what happened to Spaney. He literally was not supposed to be in that spot. He played the entire thing wrong. He was in the wrong spot and made a giant error that left everyone confused. This was an absolutely massive mistake on the part of Radecic. As he said afterwards, because he was truly angry with himself for blowing the play in his big opportunity, it's embarrassing. It really is. The truth is, I was in the wrong place. I read the play wrong, and I was on the other side. I wasn't supposed to be there. You know, Craig read the coverage perfectly. I shouldn't have been there. So how did something like this happen? Well, Radecic completely forgot who he was supposed to be covering. In the Chiefs' Blue Hawk pass coverage, which is what this was, the play called for Radecic to read what the tight end was doing. And instead, he read what the running back was doing. Radecic said that he was supposed to be double covering the tight end, which would have put him on the strong side of the formation. However, because of Radecic's error, he was on the weak side. In other words, he was on the complete wrong side of the field, out of position by several orders of magnitude. Radecic continued on what he was doing there, saying, I thought we were in a strong side formation, so I played it that way. But we weren't in strong side coverage. We were in weak side. I didn't realize it, so I went on playing as if I was on the strong side. And the entire defense was confused as to what the heck Radecic was doing, with veteran linebacker Jerry Blanton flat out asking Radecic, what were you doing over there? It was at that moment that Radecic knew that he messed up badly. As Blanton said, I couldn't figure out why he was there. I didn't know who Craig was throwing to, but it turned out to be a heck of a play. And even though Radecic was excited about scoring the touchdown, because who wouldn't be in that spot, when he went back to the bench, he was furious with himself at first. He told defensive coordinator Dan Daniel that he completely screwed up the play and botched his assignment, saying that he messed up badly. Radecic even said in the post-game press conference on his error, I was happy to make the play and get the team going and get the fans going, but it's kind of embarrassing. And that's when Daniel had a response to the rookie who was beating himself up. Because at that moment, Daniel asked Radecic, did you score a touchdown? Then you didn't mess up. And having watched the play, I can confirm that Radecic did in fact score a touchdown. So according to Daniel's logic, he did not mess up. And if messing up leads to your team pulling off the upset victory and having the greatest play and moment of your career, then I think it's safe to say that I would love to mess up more often. I've covered tons of plays where the player was in the wrong spot and completely messed up the play, only for it to benefit them and be a highlight. Heck, I talked about another play from that same exact season in 1984, when the Chargers offensive coordinator, in a game against the Dolphins, called the wrong play, because his brain and his mouth were not in sync with each other, and that wrong play turned out to win them the game. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. I talked about a 1976 play, where New York Jets running back Clark Gaines was in the wrong position, and was not supposed to be anywhere near where he was. The play legitimately saved his career. Just like the last one, you can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. And this pick 6 by Scott Radecic, even though you might not have heard of it before, is up there with the best of them. It's crazy to think how Radecic played 12 seasons in the NFL, and this was, quite literally, the only pick 6 of his career, and it came by complete accident, and it came when he messed up. Because when you consider those circumstances, this might be the greatest mistake in the over 60-year history of the Kansas City Chiefs franchise. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9. To see college football videos, subscribe to JaguarGator8. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.